In this video, we're going to be going over the 5 best covered call ETFs and what I'm actually invested in. These are stocks that I've actually purchased and are in my portfolio. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel as it would help the small channel grow a ton. And let's get into these 5 covered call ETFs. ETF number 1 is QQCL, and I really like QQCL because it's basically writing covered calls on the NASDAQ 100 holdings. And if you've looked at the NASDAQ 100 compared to the S&P 500, the NASDAQ 100 has actually outperformed year after year and is providing higher returns. Here you can see that the annual yield for the QQCL ETF is about 15%. And if you're unfamiliar with the QQCL ETF or the underlying holdings, which is essentially the NASDAQ 100, there's companies like Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, Amazon, and Meta in the QQCL ETF, which are essentially big tech companies. So NASDAQ 100 is full of tech. Now, I would personally consider QQCL as the bread and butter or a foundational covered call ETF if you have a covered call portfolio. These type of stocks, these types of ETFs are going to keep your portfolio grounded, and they're always going to continue to grow over time, as the Nasdaq 100 and the S&P 500 have been rock solid for plenty of time, for decades, and you want to have a good portion of your portfolio in foundational covered call ETFs like this one. And that brings us on to number 2, which is also a foundational ETF, which is USCL. Now the USCL is based off of the S&P 500. It is a covered call ETF and it provides about a 13% annual yield. If you want to look at companies, it also has a lot of the large cap US companies across all sectors with covered call income. So some of the big names here are Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Berkshire Hathaway, Johnson & Johnson, and 495 others. It's a great way to get broad US market diversification and covered call income that will sustain itself and grow over time. So it's one of those foundational covered call ETFs that I would strongly recommend. All right, so next up we have HHIS ETF, and it's unique because it doesn't hold any individual stocks. Instead, it holds 20 single income ETFs, each focused on one major company. This is a fund of funds structure with layered leverage and covered calls. It's got a high annual yield and it can vary with the volatility. So it's got 25% leverage as well, 50% coverage for the covered calls on the half of the portfolio, and high volatility. So let's take a look at some of the stocks that are in the HHIS ETF. So here are some of those holdings that it has, and these are the top 10 holdings. It's got Harvest Alphabet ETF, which is 8% of the portfolio. Then it's got the Harvest Tesla ETF, 7.3%, Harvest Eli Lilly ETF, Harvest Nvidia ETF, Harvest Broadcom ETF, and Harvest Apple ETF. There are more holdings on the side there of these single stock ETFs that you can see on the right side. Each single stock ETF holds one major stock, uses covered calls, and applies leverage for maximum income generation. So this is a money machine. All right, so next up we have a crypto ETF, which is called the HBIX ETF. HBIX is the only crypto-focused covered call ETF in this portfolio. It doesn't hold traditional stocks, it holds Bitcoin exposure, so it holds IBIT and Bitcoin-related instruments. It's got a covered call strategy, just like the rest of them. This is fundamentally different from equity ETFs, not for conservative investors. It gives around a 20% yield, and I would only invest in a covered call ETF that's focused on Bitcoin or Bitcoin focused if you believe in Bitcoin for the long term. If you don't believe in it, don't invest in it. Remember, this is not financial advice. I am just sharing my opinions. And number 5, we have the UTES ETF, and it's the Evolve Canadian Utilities Enhanced Yield Index Fund. So what does it actually hold? It's got companies like Enbridge, TC Energy, Pembina, Hydro One, Fortis, and BCE/TELUS. So it's got the Canadian utilities, pipelines, and telecom with covered calls and 125% leverage. The yield for this ETF is about 16%, and I think that it's a very safe ETF to get because of the companies that are underlying it. So, for example, we're always going to need utilities, we're always going to need telecom, pipelines, and utilities in Canada. So, I don't think this ETF is going anywhere, and I think it's a great one to have in your covered call ETF portfolio. So let's just hypothetically say that you use this exact same 5 covered call ETF portfolio. What would you truly be invested in? Well, a big portion of your investments would be through tech giants like Apple, Amazon, Meta, Nvidia, and many, many more. There's also US blue chip stocks in there, so Berkshire, J&J, and many others. There's some crypto exposure with iBit and via HBIX, and then utilities and infrastructure, so Enbridge, Fortis, and BCE. So it's quite well rounded here, and the crypto, you don't have to do it. It's only if you believe in it. All right, so it's important to know what you own. Don't just blindly buy something because someone's telling you to get it on the internet. Make sure you don't just look at the yield, that you know what you're actually purchasing, and you have some foundational covered call ETFs like QQCL or USCL. The income is great, but understanding what you're doing is much, much better, and it'll help you get some sleep at night with comfort. Which ETF is your favorite out of this list? Is it QQCL, USCL, HHIS, HBIX, or UTES? Let me know in the comments below, and if you haven't already, like, comment, share, and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.